Samantha Hayes never expected the old moss-covered car she bought for pennies to change her life. The rusted body, the thick layer of moss covering it like a blanket everyone else saw a worthless relic. But as she began peeling back the layers of neglect, what she discovered would be worth more than just money. This wasn't just a car restoration. It was a journey of lost dreams, hidden treasures, and the strength to rebuild something far beyond what anyone imagined. Before we dive into Samantha's incredible story, tell us where you're watching from. If you're inspired by tales of second chances, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's story will leave you speechless. Now, let's get started. Samantha Hayes had seen her fair share of rusted vehicles and broken-down machines. Her small-town auto shop, Hayes' Garage, was a sanctuary for the discarded, the forgotten, and the unloved. But today was different. As she walked through the local auction house, a peculiar feeling settled in her chest, one that she couldn't quite place. It wasn't the steady hum of the old fluorescent lights above, or the whispers of the other bidders. It wasn't the worn-out furniture or the faded auction flyers that lined the walls. No. It was the sight of a car, sitting in the back corner hidden beneath layers of moss, dirt, and neglect. Even from a distance, Samantha could feel it. This wasn't just any car. There was something about it that called to her. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the room, listing off items one after the other. No one seemed to care about the car. Most people were interested in the classic trucks, the rare antiques, the easy bets, but Samantha couldn't stop staring at it. The moss-covered heap in the back corner seemed to speak to her, as if it were saying, "Take me. I'm worth more than you think." The others were preoccupied, chatting in hushed tones, their bids flying in the air. Samantha stood by herself, lost in the image of the car. She knew she didn't have the money to compete for the better cars. The bills were piling up, the repairs never stopped, and the shop was barely making enough to keep the doors open. But something about this car, something hidden beneath all that moss and rust, begged to be restored. Finally, the auctioneer's voice broke her reverie. And next up, this, well, let's call it a project car. 62 Coupe de Ville, covered in moss, rust, and years of neglect. No keys, no guarantees, but maybe, just maybe, it's got a little something worth saving. Starting bid is $500. The crowd chuckled, some whispering about how it was more likely a donation than a sale. The car wasn't much, just a broken-down relic that had long since given up on the road. Most of the bidders snickered, and a few turned their attention elsewhere. But Samantha, despite the growing laughter, raised her hand. The auctioneer paused, slightly surprised. "We've got $500 from the lady in the back. Do I hear $600? The room fell silent for a moment. Samantha's heart pounded. She had nothing but hope and her instincts pushing her forward. The others had moved on to the next item. No one seemed to notice her. No one seemed to care, except for her. $500 once, $500 twice, and sold, the auctioneer declared. Samantha blinked. Was that it? She'd won it? She'd actually bid on it? She quickly grabbed her things, her mind still racing with disbelief. It wasn't much of a win, but it was hers. As she walked to the back to claim her prize, she tried to suppress the doubt creeping in. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she was just drawn in by the excitement of the moment. But then she saw it up close, the car's sleek, faded silhouette, even beneath the overgrowth. Despite the moss covering most of the car, she could see the hints of something else. A car with history. A car that hadn't been completely forgotten. Samantha knelt down to get a closer look. Her hand hovered over the moss, brushing it aside carefully. Beneath the green was metal, a frame that was more than just scrap. She could see the hint of something special, a vintage collector's car? Maybe? But why was it left to rot like this? And more importantly, what was its story? Before she could think too much, the tow truck arrived, its massive bed slowly lifting the moss-covered car onto the flatbed. Samantha jumped into the cab of her truck and followed the tow truck back to Hayes' garage, her mind buzzing with possibilities. This was no ordinary project, and no matter what anyone else said, Samantha was going to find out just what was hidden beneath the layers of moss, because she could feel it, the promise of something far more valuable than she could ever imagine. The rusted, moss-covered car sat in the center of Samantha's garage, its presence looming like an unfinished story waiting to be told. It had arrived late the night before, the flatbed truck's tires crunching over gravel as the tow driver carefully unloaded the car. With its faded body, broken windows, and layers of dirt obscuring its original color, it didn't seem like much, just another rust bucket begging for attention. But to Samantha, it was a treasure waiting to be unlocked. She stood there, hands on her hips, staring at the car under the harsh fluorescent lights. The weight of it all pressed on her chest. Her decision to bid on the car, the uncertainty of whether it would be worth the effort, and the small, nagging doubt that perhaps she was wasting her time. But then, a voice in her head reminded her why she'd taken this gamble. Because this wasn't just a car, it was a project. It was a chance to prove something to herself, to the people who had doubted her, and to the world that she wasn't just a mechanic. She was an artist, capable of transforming the impossible. Samantha pulled on her gloves and grabbed a rag. She stepped closer to the car, the scent of moss, oil, and old metal filling the air. As she ran her fingers across the rusted surface, she could feel the outlines of what used to be a proud vehicle, one that had been cared for, loved, and then left to rot. She pulled out her flashlight and turned it on, shining the beam into the interior. Inside, it was a mess. The seats were cracked, the dashboard was covered in dust, and there was a strong smell of mold and decay. But there was something more. In the faint light, she saw the shape of an old leather glove, half buried under the front seat. Samantha pulled it out, carefully, as if it were a relic from another life. She opened the glove compartment, hoping for a clue, anything to give her more insight into what this car had been. But all she found were a few scattered receipts and an old map with smudged ink. Yet, there was one item that caught her eye. A small, faded picture stuck to the back of the glove compartment door. Samantha gently peeled it away. It was a photo of a man standing next to a car. The car wasn't the moss-covered relic in front of her, but a sleek, polished sports car. A model that looked like something out of a car collector's dreams. The man in the photo was young, with dark hair and a broad smile, proudly standing beside the vehicle. There was a faint caption on the bottom corner: Vincenzo Romano, 1964. The moment we made history. The name hit her like a jolt of electricity. Vincenzo Romano, the name she'd found earlier on the receipt at the auction. Her mind raced. Could this car really be linked to the legendary collector? Was it possible that this forgotten, abandoned vehicle had once been part of a collection worth millions? Samantha's heart began to race. She couldn't stop thinking about the picture. Who was this man? And why had the car been abandoned? It was clear now that the car wasn't just any rusted heap. It had a history, a story that no one had bothered to remember. She carefully tucked the photo into her pocket and grabbed her tools. It was time to dig deeper. For hours, she worked on the car, carefully peeling away the layers of grime and debris, determined to bring it back to life. As she removed the moss from the hood, she began to see the shape of the car more clearly. It wasn't just any car. It was a Ferrari. A rare, vintage model that, even in its current state, had the markings of a high-end collector's piece. By the time the sun began to set, the car was stripped down to its frame. Samantha stood back, admiring the skeleton of the vehicle. It wasn't much yet, but she could see the potential. She could see the masterpiece beneath all the neglect. The sleek lines, the unmistakable curve of the fender. This car had once been something extraordinary, but now it was up to her to uncover its secrets. She wiped her brow and pulled out her phone. As she began to search for more information on the car, the weight of what she was holding in her hands became clear. The pieces were falling into place, and each discovery led her to more questions. Who was Vincenzo Romano? What was the story behind this rare Ferrari? And why had it been left to rot in the woods? Samantha knew one thing for sure. She wasn't just restoring a car. She was restoring history. The air in Samantha's garage felt thick with anticipation as she surveyed the stripped-down Ferrari in front of her. What had begun as a neglected, moss-covered relic was slowly taking shape as something far more significant than she could have imagined. The car's frame gleamed in the harsh lights, its curves and structure slowly revealing the beauty hidden beneath years of dirt and rust. Samantha had worked tirelessly for days, scraping away the layers of history, each layer telling its own story, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something important, something that might change everything she thought she knew about the car. As she ran her hand along the edge of the hood, a glint of metal caught her eye. She crouched down, squinting in the dim light. There, wedged between the inner workings of the engine, was a small, tarnished key. Samantha carefully pulled it out, turning it over in her palm. The key was old, its edges worn smooth from years of use, but there was something peculiar about it. It wasn't just a random tool or part that had fallen out of place. This key had been tucked away on purpose. But for what? Her pulse quickened. She glanced around the garage, wondering if she was missing something else. Was there a hidden compartment, a locked box, or a secret storage space inside the car? She couldn't just leave it there. It had to be a clue. Without hesitation, Samantha began checking every inch of the car. She removed the dashboard, hoping to find some hidden compartment or drawer. But there was nothing. She checked under the seats, behind the wheel, even the pedals, still nothing. Frustration bubbled in her chest, but she refused to give up. Something inside her told her this wasn't just some random part of the car, it was important. That's when she noticed it. Beneath the front passenger seat, barely visible under the layers of dust and dirt, was a small metal plate. Samantha's heart raced as she carefully wiped the dirt away. There, engraved into the metal, was a set of numbers. #4187. Her breath caught. Was this a serial number? A part number? Or could it be a key to understanding the history of this car? She took out her phone and searched for the number, fingers trembling as she typed. The search results made her stomach flip. #4187 wasn't just any number. It was the serial number for a 1964 Ferrari 250 GTO, one of the rarest and most expensive cars ever made. Only 36 of these cars were ever built, and they were considered priceless artifacts of automotive history. The Ferrari 250 GTO had sold for millions at auctions, and now Samantha was holding a piece of that very legacy in her hands. This car, the one that had been left to rot in the woods, covered in moss, was a GTO, a Ferrari, that was worth far more than she could ever have imagined. Samantha sank into a nearby chair, the weight of the discovery pressing down on her. She had known there was something special about this car, but she hadn't dared to hope it would be worth this much. Could this really be the same Ferrari that had once belonged to Vincenzo Romano? The one he had proudly owned and displayed? Was it the same car that had vanished from the collector's world all those years ago? Her head spun with the possibilities. The car she had purchased for a mere $500 could now be worth millions. It wasn't just about the money, though. There was a deeper connection to this car, one that was rooted in the past, in history, in legacy. She was holding a piece of that legacy, and it was her job to restore it. But there were still so many unanswered questions. How had this car ended up abandoned? What had happened to Vincenzo Romano? And what secrets was the car still hiding? Samantha stood up, gripping the small key tightly in her hand. Whatever the answers were, she knew she was in this for more than just the restoration. This car was her ticket to something much bigger, a journey into the past, a discovery of history, and perhaps a new chapter in her own life. She wasn't just restoring a car. She was uncovering a mystery, and this was just the beginning. The days that followed felt like a blur to Samantha. The discovery of the Ferrari's serial number had shaken her to the core. But the more she thought about it, the more questions emerged. This wasn't just a car. It was a piece of history, something that had been lost and forgotten for decades. How had it ended up in the woods, abandoned and left to rot? And why was no one looking for it? Samantha spent long hours researching the car, its history, and most importantly, the man behind it, Vincenzo Romano. His name seemed to appear in every article and auction catalog that mentioned rare Ferraris, but there was little about him personally. It was as if he had vanished from the automotive world. She found mentions of his legendary collection, but no real explanation for what had happened to it. With the car stripped down, Samantha found herself facing more than just rust and grime. The more she worked, the more she found hidden beneath the layers the truth of the car's past. There were faint markings on the frame, almost like graffiti scratched into the metal by a previous owner. It was as if someone had been trying to mark it, to claim it as their own, but the meaning behind the markings was still unclear. But there was one thing she couldn't ignore. The car wasn't just abandoned, it had been forgotten, and as much as she wanted to uncover its history, the truth about why it had been left behind was becoming more elusive with each passing day. The breakthrough came when she found a weathered, half-torn envelope wedged beneath the rear seat. It had clearly been there for years, possibly even decades, hidden from view and sealed shut with what looked like a wax stamp. Samantha held her breath as she carefully pried it open. Inside, there were several documents, most of them faded, their ink nearly illegible. But one piece of paper stood out from the rest. A letter. She carefully unfolded the letter and began reading, "To whom it may concern. This Ferrari 250 GTO, serial number #4187, is not just a car. It is a symbol of my family's legacy, one that has been passed down through generations. It was never meant to be sold, but circumstances have changed. I must part with it, though it pains me to do so. This car is worth more than just its parts. It holds memories of my father, of the battles we fought together, and of the promises we made. I hope that whoever takes it next will understand that it is not just a machine, but a piece of our soul." Vincenzo Romano, 1964. Samantha's fingers trembled as she held the letter. This wasn't just a letter about a car, it was a letter about loss, legacy, and the deep emotional connection that Vincenzo Romano had to the vehicle. It seemed that the car had meant more to him than anyone could have imagined. But where had he gone? Why had he given it up? And most importantly, how had it ended up in the woods, covered in moss, so far from where it belonged? The more she thought about it, the more confused she became. If this car had meant so much to Romano, why hadn't he protected it? Why had he allowed it to be forgotten, left to rot? The answers weren't coming easy, but Samantha wasn't one to give up. She was in too deep now, and the thought of abandoning the project or leaving the mystery unsolved wasn't an option. She went back to the car, carefully studying every inch of it. She knew that somewhere, hidden beneath all the layers of time, there was an answer. There had to be. As she worked, a thought occurred to her. What if the car hadn't been abandoned by Romano but taken from him? Could it have been stolen? If so, who had stolen it? And why? Samantha had to find out. With renewed determination, she began making calls. She reached out to classic car historians, auction houses, and even law enforcement to dig into the car's past. But the more she searched, the more she realized that Vincenzo Romano was no longer a figure of the present, he was a ghost. His collection had been scattered, his name erased from the history books. Whoever had taken this car, whoever had hidden it away, had done so with purpose. As the hours passed, Samantha found herself at a crossroads. She had learned that the car had been sold once before, but the records were incomplete. Whoever had last owned it had kept a tight grip on its history, leaving only vague references to the car's previous owners. And yet, the more she delved into the history of this Ferrari, the clearer it became that this car wasn't just valuable, it was priceless. She stood back, looking at the frame of the car, now almost fully restored. The rust was gone, the body had been repainted, and the engine had been rebuilt to perfection. But there was something more she needed. To do something that could change everything. Samantha knew that unlocking the car's true history wasn't just about restoring its physical form. It was about uncovering the truth behind its abandonment, finding out who had hidden it away for all these years, and bringing its story to light. Because this car wasn't just about money, it was about a legacy that had been lost and was now waiting to be found, and Samantha was determined to be the one to find it. The night air outside Samantha's garage was cool, but inside, the heat of the day still lingered, clinging to the walls as the low hum of the overhead lights filled the silence. Samantha leaned over the polished Ferrari, her fingers tracing the curves of its frame as she took in the progress she'd made. The car was nearly done, its body gleaming with fresh paint, the engine humming with life, and the interior slowly taking shape. Yet, despite everything she'd accomplished, something gnawed at her. There was still a mystery to solve, a piece of the puzzle that wouldn't fall into place. For days, Samantha had tried to put the car's history together, reading through old letters and clues that seemed to lead to dead ends. She'd uncovered Vincenzo Romano's deep connection to the car, but nothing explained how it had ended up abandoned, covered in moss in the woods. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to discover, something hidden, buried beneath the layers of time and paint. That's when she noticed it. While polishing the rear bumper, a flash of light caught her eye. Samantha leaned in, her brow furrowing in concentration. Beneath the freshly applied paint, she saw something odd, a faint outline, as if something had been deliberately scratched or etched into the metal. It wasn't just random damage. It was a pattern, carefully done, as if someone had been marking something important. Samantha's pulse quickened as she gently ran her fingers over the area, careful not to disturb the paint any further. The markings were subtle, almost invisible, but they were definitely there. There were numbers, 3 sets, each separated by a small dash. It didn't take long for Samantha to realize what they were. Coordinates, she whispered to herself. The markings were geographical coordinates, a location somewhere specific. But why had they been etched onto the car? What significance did this place have to the car's history? She grabbed her phone and typed in the numbers, her fingers trembling as she hit the search button. The coordinates led to a remote location, an abandoned warehouse just outside of town, near the outskirts of the woods. Her mind raced. Was this the place where the car had been hidden all these years? Was this where it had been taken after Vincenzo Romano had been forced to sell it? The more she thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. Whoever had taken the car had hidden it away, and the warehouse seemed like the perfect place for something this valuable to disappear. Samantha didn't hesitate. She grabbed her jacket, the keys to her truck, and a flashlight. She was going to investigate. The drive to the warehouse felt like it took forever. The road was quiet, the only sounds the hum of her truck's engine and the occasional rustle of the wind through the trees. As she approached the warehouse, the sense of urgency in her chest grew. She wasn't sure what she was expecting to find, but she knew it was important. She had to know the truth. The warehouse was an imposing structure, its windows boarded up, its exterior covered in ivy and overgrowth. It looked abandoned, like most of the old buildings in this part of town. But something about it felt different, almost as if it were guarding a secret. Samantha parked her truck a few yards away and approached the building cautiously. The door was old, the wood warped and splintered, but it wasn't locked. She pushed it open with a creak, the sound echoing in the stillness. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of old wood. Samantha's flashlight illuminated the room, revealing shelves filled with forgotten tools, old machinery, and discarded furniture. But as she moved further into the warehouse, she began to notice something strange. There were car parts scattered around the room. Engine blocks, suspension systems, wheels, things that didn't belong in a place like this. And as her flashlight swept across the room, it landed on something that stopped her in her tracks. There, in the far corner of the warehouse, was a covered object. The tarp was old, torn in places, but it still hung loosely over whatever was hidden beneath. Samantha approached it cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. With one swift motion, she pulled the tarp back. What she found nearly knocked the breath out of her. Beneath the tarp was another Ferrari one that looked just like the one she had been restoring, but in far worse condition. The same sleek lines, the same iconic curves, but this one was battered, its body covered in rust, its wheels missing. It looked like it had been here for years, hidden away, abandoned, just like the first one. Samantha's eyes widened. This wasn't just any Ferrari, it was another 1964 Ferrari 250 GTO, the same model as the car she'd been working on. The serial number on the dashboard matched the one she had uncovered earlier. But why was it here? And why was it hidden in this warehouse? Her mind raced with questions. Was this car part of Vincenzo Romano's collection as well? Had he hidden it here, just like the one she was restoring? And if so, why? As she stepped closer, she noticed something even more curious beneath the car's decaying frame. The floor of the warehouse had been disturbed, as if someone had been digging or searching for something. Was this another clue? Or was someone else involved in this mystery? Samantha knelt down, brushing the dust aside, revealing a metal box buried under the floorboards. The lock was rusty, but it was still intact. Her hands trembled as she reached for the box, her heart pounding in anticipation. She couldn't believe what she was about to uncover. With a firm tug, she pulled the box free, and with one swift motion, she opened it. Inside, she found a bundle of old papers, photographs, and documents all relating to the Ferrari, Vincenzo Romano, and a secret transaction that had been hidden from the public for decades. This was it. This was the key to everything. The truth behind the Ferrari's disappearance, its abandonment, and the mystery of Vincenzo Romano's legacy was about to be revealed. Samantha sat back on her heels, the old metal box resting in her lap as her heart raced with excitement. The warehouse, once so quiet and abandoned, now felt like the center of a storm. She had found something. No, someone had hidden something here. This wasn't just about restoring a car. This was about uncovering a mystery far bigger than she could have imagined. The papers inside the box were yellowed with age, fragile to the touch, but every word on them felt like it could crack open a new world. She carefully unfolded the first document. It was a contract, written in flowing script, detailing the sale of 2 Ferrari 250 GTOs from Vincenzo Romano's collection to an unnamed buyer. The contract was dated over 30 years ago, when Romano's collection was at its peak, but the most startling detail was hidden in the small print at the bottom. The buyer's name was censored, the ink smudged in such a way that it was impossible to read. Samantha felt her pulse quicken. Someone had intentionally obscured this information, someone who didn't want their involvement in the sale to be known. She glanced at the second sheet, which appeared to be a series of invoices and letters, all pointing to a massive transaction, a deal worth millions, not just for one car, but for 2. The deal was completed in secret, with the cars transferred under false pretenses. But why? And who would go to such lengths to keep this deal under wraps? Samantha's mind was buzzing. She could feel the pieces starting to come together. Whoever had been involved in this sale didn't want anyone to know about it, not then, and not now. But why? She picked up the next piece of paper. It was a photograph, faded at the edges but still recognizable. The image showed a younger Vincenzo Romano standing next to a sleek, polished Ferrari 250 GTO, the one she had been restoring. Beside him was another man, older, dressed in a dark suit, his face partially obscured by shadows. The photograph was taken at an unknown location, an office perhaps, or a private garage. Samantha turned the photo over, her fingers trembling. Written in the same elegant handwriting as the contract were the words, Vincenzo Romano and Joseph Turner, 1970. Joseph Turner. The name sent a chill down her spine. She had heard the name before, whispers of it in the local papers, references to a notorious car collector known for his secretive dealings and shady history. Turner had been rumored to be involved in several illegal operations, but no one had ever been able to prove it. Had he been the buyer all along? Was Turner the one who had hidden these cars? The mystery was deepening. Samantha could feel the weight of the information in her hands. She wasn't just holding a car's history. She was holding a scandal that could rock the automotive world and beyond. Her mind raced as she pieced together the timeline. Vincenzo Romano's prized cars had been sold under suspicious circumstances to someone with questionable intentions. The Ferrari she had been restoring wasn't just a forgotten relic. It was a missing treasure, one that had been hidden away, its true value unknown to the world for decades. And now, with this new evidence, Samantha had the key to unlock its story. She stood up, feeling the weight of the moment pressing on her chest. She knew she couldn't keep this to herself, not anymore. The story was bigger than her, bigger than any car restoration. This was about bringing the truth to light, about finding out who Joseph Turner really was and how he had been connected to the car's disappearance. Samantha packed the documents back into the box, determined to follow this trail wherever it led. But as she reached for her keys to leave the warehouse, she heard something, a faint creak, like a door opening in the distance. Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't alone. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up as she turned, instinctively clutching the box to her chest. Her flashlight swept across the room, but there was no one in sight. Still, the eerie feeling that she was being watched lingered in the air. Samantha hesitated, listening for any sound. There it was again, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Panic set in. She wasn't sure who was there or why, but she knew she had to leave before she got caught in something far more dangerous than she had ever anticipated. She grabbed her phone and texted a friend, a car enthusiast and legal expert, who could help her decipher everything she had uncovered. As she stood there, waiting for a response, the footsteps grew louder, closer. Someone was definitely in the building, and they had heard her. Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching her every move, waiting for her to get too close to the truth. But now it was too late to turn back. She had the answers. And no matter who was after her, she was determined to uncover the full story and expose the people who had hidden it all for so long. With her phone in hand and the box tucked safely under her arm, Samantha made her way to the exit, her steps quickening as she heard the sound of the door creaking open behind her. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest as she moved quickly toward the exit of the warehouse. The sound of footsteps behind her grew louder, closer, until it felt like a tangible presence following her through the dust and shadows. She wasn't sure who was there, but it didn't matter. The truth was too big now, too important to back away from. She had to get out of this warehouse, and she had to make sure the information she'd uncovered didn't fall into the wrong hands. She reached the door and yanked it open, spilling into the cool night air. Her truck was parked just a few yards away, and she broke into a run, the metal box still tightly clutched under her arm. As she reached her truck, she glanced over her shoulder. Nothing. No one. The warehouse stood silent, like a graveyard of forgotten treasures, but she could still feel eyes on her, like the darkness itself was watching her every move. She slammed the truck door shut, turned the key in the ignition, and sped off, her mind racing with the information she had just uncovered. The documents, the photographs, the name Joseph Turner it was, all starting to come together. But the more she thought about it, the more questions surfaced. Joseph Turner had been more than just a shady collector. He had been the one to orchestrate the disappearance of these Ferraris, hiding them away in places like the warehouse she had just left. Why? What was his involvement in all this? And why had Vincenzo Romano, one of the most respected names in the automotive world, let it all slip through his fingers? As Samantha drove back to her shop, she knew she needed help. She couldn't make sense of all this on her own. She needed someone who could help her connect the dots. Someone who understood the bigger picture. And for that, she reached out to someone she trusted. Ben Calloway, a former car auctioneer turned historian, whose expertise in rare vehicles could shed light on the mystery. She pulled into the parking lot of Hayes' garage, parked the truck, and immediately grabbed her phone. Ben answered on the first ring. "Hey, Samantha? What's up? You sound tense. I need your help," she said, her voice low. "I found something big, and I think it's connected to Joseph Turner." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Turner? The one with the shady reputation?" "Yeah, the same one. I'm at a breaking point with this Ferrari project. You won't believe what I found. Documents, photos, a second car hidden away in a warehouse, and Turner's name keeps coming up. It's all connected somehow, Ben. I can feel it. All right, slow down, Ben said. Tell me what you've got. Samantha recounted the details, telling him about the hidden documents, the coordinates, the letter from Romano, and the second Ferrari in the warehouse. By the time she was finished, Ben was quiet for a long moment. This is huge, Sam, he said finally. You're dealing with more than just a car restoration. This sounds like an entire web of illegal dealings, hidden cars, and maybe even stolen property. You might be in over your head here. Samantha shook her head, though she knew he couldn't see her. I can't just walk away. I have to know why this car was hidden, why it was abandoned. I need to know what happened to Vincenzo Romano and why Turner has been involved in all of this. Ben let out a long breath. Okay, I'll help you, but we need to be careful. There are people out there who don't want this story to come out. If Turner's involved in this, you're probably stepping into something dangerous. I know, Samantha replied. But I can't just let this go. I've come too far. There was a long pause before Ben spoke again. All right. I've got some contacts who can help us dig deeper into Turner's history. If you're really serious about this, meet me at my office tomorrow morning. We'll start connecting the dots. Samantha felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She wasn't alone in this anymore. Ben was on her side, and with his help, she might just be able to figure out what had happened all those years ago and why this car, this piece of history, had been lost for so long. The next morning, Samantha drove to Ben's office, a small building nestled between antique shops and coffee houses in the heart of town. As she stepped inside, the familiar smell of old books and leather greeted her. Ben was already there, pacing back and forth in front of a large stack of papers. All right, I've pulled up everything I could find on Joseph Turner, Ben said, his voice grim. You're not going to like what I've found. Samantha sat down at the table, her mind racing. What did you find? Ben slid a file toward her. It was thick, with printed documents, photos, and legal papers. As Samantha flipped through the pages, she saw it. Turner had been involved in a number of illegal activities, but it wasn't just the cars that were at the center of it all. Turner had been laundering money through classic car sales, using his rare collection as a front for far more sinister dealings. He had acquired not just the Ferrari 250 GTOs, but other rare cars that had disappeared without a trace. It was clear now. Turner was not just a collector. He was a criminal mastermind, using the cars to hide his tracks. How much do you think he's worth? Samantha asked, her voice barely a whisper. Ben looked up from the file, his expression hardening. I'd say anywhere between $30 million and $50 million, if not more. But this car, the Ferrari you've been working on, it could be worth even more. We're talking about a car that has been lost to history. There are collectors who would kill to get their hands on it. Samantha felt her stomach tighten. The stakes had never been higher. She was no longer just restoring a car, she was uncovering a conspiracy that reached far beyond anything she had ever imagined, and she was about to make a decision that could change her life forever. Samantha sat at the edge of Ben's desk, the weight of everything she had learned pressing heavily on her chest. The Ferrari, Vincenzo Romano's legacy, Joseph Turner's involvement. It was all starting to feel like too much for one person to handle. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that this wasn't just about cars. It was about power, money, and control. The stakes were far higher than she had ever anticipated. Ben had spent the last hour explaining everything he had found about Joseph Turner. Turner was no mere collector. He was a player in a much larger game, using classic cars to launder money and hide illegal assets. The Ferrari 250 GTO Samantha had been restoring wasn't just a rare vehicle. It was a key to a network of secrets that spanned decades. And now, with the car nearly finished, Samantha was at the center of it all. Ben cleared his throat, breaking the silence. You've got two options now, Sam. You can walk away, sell the car, and take the money. It's worth a lot, and no one would blame you for cashing in. You've put in so much work. You've earned it." Samantha's hands clenched around the papers in front of her. The thought of walking away, the thought of selling the Ferrari for a small fortune tempted her more than she cared to admit. Her life could change overnight. She could fix the shop, pay off the debts, maybe even start a new chapter. The money was within reach. All she had to do was take it. But deep down, she knew she couldn't. "I can't just sell it," she whispered, more to herself than to Ben. "I can't let Turner get away with this car. It's not just a relic, it's a story, a legacy. I don't know how, but I need to find the truth. I need to understand what happened to Romano, why this car disappeared, and why Turner has been hiding it for so long." Ben looked at her, his expression softening. "I understand. But you need to be careful, Sam. Turner isn't a guy who lets go of his possessions. He's dangerous. And if he finds out you've got this car, well, let's just say it's not going to be just a matter of selling it. People like Turner don't lose things without consequences." Samantha nodded, her mind made up. She had come this far. She couldn't just give up now. The car, the history, the secrets, it was all too important to ignore. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, her voice firm. "But I need to know one thing. Why did Romano let it go? Why did he sell these cars to Turner in the first place? Did he know what Turner was up to?" Ben shook his head. "That's the big question, isn't it? Romano was one of the most respected names in the industry. To give up these cars to someone like Turner, there's got to be more to it. But whatever the reason, we can't afford to wait around. Turner's people are probably already on the lookout for that Ferrari. If you want answers, we've got to act fast." Samantha stood up, a fire igniting in her chest. The uncertainty, the danger, it didn't matter anymore. She was ready to face whatever came next. She had a job to finish. And it wasn't just about restoring a car, it was about restoring justice. "I'm not backing down," she said, determination setting in. "I'll find out what happened. I'll make sure the truth comes out." Ben stood up and handed her a file. "Then you'll need this. I've pulled up everything I could on Turner's business dealings, his connections. It's not much, but it's a start. You'll need to be careful, though. If Turner catches wind of this, things are going to get ugly." Samantha took the file, her heart pounding. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, but there was no turning back now. She couldn't just sell the car and forget about it. Not when she had the chance to expose everything, every secret, every lie, every hidden truth. As she left Ben's office and stepped back into the cool night air, the world outside felt different. The car, the warehouse, the mystery. It was all part of something much bigger than she had ever imagined. And now, she was in too deep to back out. But with every step she took, she knew she was closer to the truth. And the truth, no matter how dangerous, was worth it. The question was no longer whether she could walk away. It was whether she could survive the consequences of uncovering the story behind the Ferrari. Samantha didn't sleep that night. Her mind was too busy, too filled with questions, with strategies, with plans. The file Ben had given her was filled with leads, but it was also full of dead ends. Turner's empire of illegal car dealings was vast, and his connections stretched further than she had realized. Yet despite the overwhelming scope of it all, Samantha couldn't back down. She had made a promise to herself, to the car, to the memory of Vincenzo Romano. She couldn't just let this mystery die. The next morning she was back at Hayes's garage, staring at the Ferrari. It was nearly complete, polished, rebuilt, and ready to be shown to the world. It was her masterpiece. Every bolt, every layer of paint, every detail had been restored with precision and care. But now, it wasn't just a car. It was a symbol of something much bigger. As she wiped down the exterior, her phone buzzed. A message from Ben. "Turner's people have been making moves. We need to meet. Now." Samantha's stomach dropped. It wasn't just a threat anymore. Turner had found out about her investigation, about the car, and he was ready to do whatever it took to stop her. She could feel the danger closing in, but she also knew that it was too late to back off now. The truth was out there, and she wasn't going to let Turner silence it. She grabbed the keys to the Ferrari and locked up the garage, making her way to Ben's office. The urgency in his message told her everything she needed to know. There was no time to waste. When she arrived, Ben was waiting for her outside, his face grim. "We've got a serious problem," he said, his voice low. "Turner's people are already watching you. They know you've got the Ferrari, and they're not going to let you keep it for long." Samantha's heart pounded. "What do we do? How do we stop them?" Ben looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You're going to need to make a choice, Sam. You can take the car and disappear, get out of town and go somewhere safe. You'll be set for life. No one will ever find you, and Turner will never touch you again. Or, you can keep going. You can take what you've learned and expose Turner. Bring him down once and for all." Samantha's mind raced. The first option was tempting: run away, leave everything behind, and never look back. It would be easy, safe, and secure. But she knew deep down that it wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want to run. She didn't want to hide. She had fought too hard, uncovered too much to turn back now. "I'm not running," she said, her voice steady. "I'm not going to let Turner get away with this. We'll expose him, no matter what it takes." Ben nodded, his expression hardening. "Then we'll need to be smart. We can't just go after him blindly. We need a plan. We need evidence, something Turner can't deny. And most of all, we need to move fast." Samantha took a deep breath. "What do you need from me?" Ben handed her a small, encrypted hard drive. "I've got some contacts in law enforcement who can help us. This drive has all the evidence we need to make Turner's dealings public. Everything we've gathered, all the hidden transactions, the car sales. Once we get this into the right hands, Turner's done." Samantha took the drive, her fingers trembling slightly. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle. If they could expose Turner's operation, they could bring him to justice. But there was still so much at risk. She was a target now, and Turner's reach was long. "Where do we start?" she asked, her voice low but determined. "We're meeting with my contact tonight," Ben said. "But you need to be ready. If Turner catches wind of this, it's going to get ugly. We're not just dealing with stolen cars anymore, Sam. We're dealing with a criminal network. This is bigger than both of us." Samantha nodded, a quiet resolve settling in her chest. "I'm ready." As they drove to the meeting location, her mind kept racing. She thought about all the people who had been affected by Turner's actions, the collectors who had been swindled, the cars that had been stolen, the legacy of Romano that had been tarnished by Turner's greed. Samantha wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the truth, for history, for justice. When they arrived at the meeting spot, a nondescript diner on the edge of town, Ben led her inside. They were met by a man in a suit, his face obscured by dark sunglasses and a neatly trimmed beard. He didn't introduce himself, he didn't need to. He was law enforcement. He was there to help bring Turner down. Ben slid the encrypted drive across the table. "This is everything. The proof we need to end this." The man nodded, taking the drive and slipping it into his jacket. "We'll take it from here, but be prepared. Turner won't go down without a fight." Samantha's heart beat in her throat. She was so close now. She could almost taste it, the truth, the justice, the end of the nightmare. But the thought of what came next made her stomach twist. Once Turner knew what was happening, there would be no stopping him. As she and Ben left the diner, Samantha felt the weight of everything shift. It wasn't just about restoring a car anymore, it was about restoring what had been lost, about fighting for what was right. She was no longer just a mechanic. She was a part of something bigger than herself. And no matter what came next, she was ready to face it. The night air was thick with anticipation. As Samantha and Ben drove away from the diner, the weight of everything they had just set in motion pressing down on them. The encrypted drive had been handed over. The proof was in the right hands. And now all they could do was wait. As they made their way back to the garage, Samantha's mind raced. She had exposed Turner's operation. But the danger was far from over. Turner wouldn't just walk away. He would fight back. He would try to erase everything they had uncovered. But she wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything she had sacrificed to get to this point. Back at Hayes's garage, Samantha stood in front of the Ferrari, now fully restored, its once damaged body gleaming under the bright lights. She had poured her heart and soul into this car, but it was never just about the restoration. It had become a symbol of something greater, something beyond the metal and paint. This car, this Ferrari 250 GTO, was a connection to the past, to Vincenzo Romano, to a lost legacy. It was a testament to the power of memory, to the unbreakable bond between a man and the things he loved. And now, it was a part of history, one that would never be forgotten again. Samantha ran her hand along the smooth surface of the car, feeling the warmth of its engine that still hummed beneath the hood. The restoration had been about more than just fixing rusted parts. It had been about rebuilding what had been broken, about making things whole again. She heard Ben's footsteps behind her, and without turning around, she knew what he was going to say. "We did it," he said quietly, his voice thick with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "Turner's done. The story's out there now. There's no going back." Samantha nodded, her gaze fixed on the Ferrari. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing: this was only the beginning. Turner might have been taken down, but the legacy of this car, the truth behind its story, would live on forever. She had uncovered the past, and now it was her job to make sure it didn't get buried again. "We made a difference, Ben," she said, her voice soft but steady. "This car, it's not just a thing, it's a story, and now that story is out there for everyone to see." Ben placed a hand on her shoulder, offering a reassuring smile. "You didn't just restore a car, Sam. You restored a piece of history." The words lingered in the air as Samantha looked at the Ferrari one last time. She had given it new life, just as she had done for herself. She had started this journey with a wrecked car and a broken spirit, but now, standing here, she felt like she was finally whole. The restoration was complete. The truth had been uncovered, and for the first time in a long time, Samantha felt like she had truly found her place in the world. As she stood there in the quiet of the garage, the future seemed uncertain, but it also felt full of possibility. She had fought for this, fought for the car, fought for the story, fought for the truth, and now, she had a legacy of her own. With a final glance at the Ferrari, she turned off the lights in the garage, leaving the past behind her but carrying its lessons forward. She wasn't just a mechanic anymore. She was a builder, a protector, a keeper of stories that deserved to be told. The journey had been long. The path had been difficult. But as Samantha Hayes stepped into the future, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The end of this chapter was just the beginning of the next.